hey, we got James Willems. Okay, and I before you say anything, I would like to apologize if I said it wrong before, because I've always said Williams and not Willems.
I don't think you've ever said it wrong before. I don't think so. I mean, you've mostly said Angel.
Well, yeah.
Right? So I don't know that you would have ever had to say Williams or Willems, but yeah, you got it. You got it right.
I appreciate it, because I always get scared of mispronouncing people's names, because you have those that are very long. I think we were talking about before we got recorded right here. Junji La Leica. That I can't.
I know. I don't think people should get too offended. In my case, mine is 2 letters off from a name that's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I've learned to just accept. If someone says Williams, I go, that's fine with me.
Yes. Well, welcome on the Your Story podcast, man. Thank you so much for taking the time.
No, thanks for having me on. I'm happy to be here.
For those who are wondering how we met, so we met through MPW, Millennium Pro Wrestling. Shout out to them. And the coolest thing that we did was, and I appreciate you going along with that, was the ring introduction. 6 foot, what was it? 6'1".
Well, it keeps changing. I think I had a match last week, and I think it was 6'2", 220. But I know when it started, it wasn't that. It was 6, then 6'1". Mm-hmm. And a lot of times I'll ask Maximilian Monclair, who's another MPW wrestler, what he's going out as, and then I'll just try and make it basically the same. Or a little bit more.
Yeah, because the crowd was eating it up. I just remember reading, he's standing 6'1". They're like, no.
Yeah, no. Maybe, I mean, I don't know if not even close is right, but no.
He's weighing 205, and they're like,
maybe 205.
Right, and then it was just cool, and then Oblivion plays out. Speaking about Oblivion, and speaking about Royal Blood, talk to us about the importance of music, and in terms of James Willems. How does that feel for you?
James Willems.
Yeah. See, I trust me. I'm
just say Angel. No. It's super important. I mean, we were talking a little bit before we started, but I have a playlist on my phone of music that I think would be good for entrance themes, not even just my own. So I'll just hear a song, I'm like, ooh, that'd be really good. And I don't even know what I'm going to use it for.
Right.
But something like that is just really fun. I've always, I mean, as a kid, I would buy the WWE music CDs. Right. I always appreciated the music of professional wrestling. Jim Johnson is a genius, but now obviously we're in the phase where we use, sometimes licensed music and stuff like that, especially in the indie scene. You're mostly going to get licensed music. So I thought about it for a really, really long time, and I don't even remember where I discovered Royal Blood. I was trying to break my algorithm where if they keep me in a thing and they're like, you only listen to Sabrina Carpenter, which is fine. Right, but you only listen to Sabrina Carpenter. I'll add some sort of keyword and I'll be like, break this algorithm. And then it'll ultimately find something weird and strange. And that may have been how I came across Royal Blood. And at the time I was like, they have a sound. They definitely have an arena shaking sound, which I really appreciate.
Dude, Oblivion is one of my favorites. One of them that I thought for myself too, if I ever had a theme song, was Mad Visions. That one's the dun, 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 and then straight into the beat. Phenomenal.
It's great. It's strut music is what I call it. Strut music. Because you can strut out to it, and then it has a big chorus, and it's just a lot of fun. I think all professional wrestlers think about it to some degree, but I thought about it a lot.
Oh yeah. I mean, especially in music, but one thing I have to ask you about.
Yeah.
North Carolina.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Okay.
Coming from North Carolina, how was growing up in that environment influence your career?
I haven't really thought about it too much. I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina, so my parents were both from New York City. Mm-hmm. And then basically they were going to have kids. So my dad wanted to move to Florida. My mom wanted to stay in New York, and North Carolina is halfway in between. So they compromised. Mm-hmm. And for me, growing up in basically the most suburban area was awesome. I had a backyard. I did adventures with my best friends, and we rode our bikes and stuff like that. Awesome. 4 seasons. Uh-huh. It was great. Loved it. And then I guess unintentionally, it's a wrestling town too. I mean, you don't know that as a kid. You don't really think about that. But it was a wrestling town. So WCW, I remember, mostly came through Charlotte, and you would be out and about. You'd see wrestlers and beautiful Bobby Eaton
Yeah.
he grew up, or he didn't grow up, but he lived like a couple blocks away from me. And it was just like a thing. You're like, oh, that's where beautiful Bobby Eaton lived, and stuff.
Yeah.
So I was kind of always entrenched in professional wrestling, but I feel like maybe there's some part of me where my parents were so much New Yorkers and I was growing up in the South, but in also a modern city in the South. So not like, if you go outside of Charlotte, it's a very different North Carolina sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm not entirely sure. I don't have too much introspection on how much it shaped me, but I definitely think it be like me being this melting pot creature, not truly defined by any one bucket. I'm not a New Yorker, but my parents are. I'm not a Southerner, but I grew up in the South. All these kinds of things I think definitely helped flavor me.
Oh, absolutely. I think also maybe it influenced your college career as well. I mean, you do have a degree.
I do have a degree.
Over at the UNC, doing some media production and stuff like that. What was that like, just having that experience in college, doing all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of career aspirations growing up. I remember every couple of years it would change. For a while, I said to my parents, I was like, I want to be an actor. I love acting. I wasn't very extroverted, but I did like performing, mostly for close friends and stuff. And then I took drama in high school and I was like, yeah, I think I really want to do the acting thing. But also along the way, I was like, professional wrestling, that would be really fun. And so I did backyard wrestling with friends. We built a ring and we wrote storylines and we performed stuff. I'm still technically the champ. And I really love that too. And I remember going to my parents, this is just good upbringing or terrible upbringing, and being like, I want to be a pro wrestler. And they were like, well, you might be too young now, but we do know that Chief Wahoo McDaniels has a school that's not too far from here. So maybe if you're still interested in this in a couple months or a couple of years, we can look into it for you, which is crazy to think that like me at 14 going to my parents saying I want to be a pro wrestler and them not going, you're crazy. What are you doing? They're like, maybe, we'll see. But I think they also knew that I was probably going to find other interests along the way and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I fell in love with movies. That was the two things that I always loved were professional wrestling and movies. I would watch tons of movies. I grew up loving movies and just at first I wanted to be in them, but then at a certain point in my teens, I was like, I want to make them.
Yeah.
And so I would make short films with my friends. And then as it got closer to graduating high school, I took a film class, the first film class that our high school offered. And I said, this is definitely what I want to do. And so when I was looking at schools, I was looking at places that had like production programs. And there were essentially two major ones in North Carolina at the time, Wilmington, which had a really big film program, and then Chapel Hill. And Chapel Hill I felt like I was going to get maybe a stronger overall education there. It really appealed to me. And so that's why I picked that school. And basically I went there as a drama and film double major. I took all the acting classes, and then it said time for like playwriting theory and working on sets and building sets. And I went, so I dropped the drama major and then I just went all into film. And so I went through their film program. And so, yeah, all those kind of things worked together to ultimately, I was a kid who loved things and was like, I'm not going to stop pursuing these things relentlessly. And so Chapel Hill took me to Los Angeles because there was a program. Basically, after I graduated, I delayed my graduation to have enough credits to do a summer program in Los Angeles. And I haven't left. I've been here ever since. So,
and that's really cool to have a program like that to take you across the country like that.
Yeah. Yeah, there were two programs. There was one to London and one to Los Angeles. You had to apply, and then they would pick some of the students from that graduating class, that department, the film department, and then you'd basically apply, and if you got in, then you could pursue it. And I got into both of them, but I ultimately was like, well, I won't be able to stay in London. Like, that sounded really cool, but I don't know that I'll, like, visa-wise and international student-wise, I'd have to come back.
Right.
So I ultimately picked Los Angeles because I was like, well, I'll go there, and then I don't have to worry about accruing all this extra debt coming back without a job. I'll just go to Los Angeles and try and find a job. And that's what I did. So it was a very cool program. And I'm still connected with a lot of the people that I came out. There's like a dozen of us that came out together. And so it was a great networking opportunity as opposed to me just throwing a bag over my shoulder and then just like hitting the road. You went out with like a support group of people your age. So
yeah, I mean, that's awesome. I mean, let's segue a little bit out of the professional wrestling world, if that's cool. Let's talk about how that experience helped you with these two things, that being Comic-Con and that being E4. Those are huge events.
Okay. You mean like...
Or E3, I'm sorry.
E3? Okay.
E4, I'm sorry.
We'll pretend I never said that. They added another E.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just like the general size of and scope of those events.
Yeah.
Well, so I mean, again, maybe it's because my parents never said, you got to grow up. I hung out in nerd culture and video games. I like stuck with that kind of stuff really, and never let it go. So even when I was like trying to find a job, one of the first real jobs I got was at G4 Television because I watched it. And I liked video games and nerd culture. And so I was a writer and a producer on Attack of the Show, which was kind of the precursor to this whole YouTube world that we're in. And I kind of just never let it go. And by nature of that, ended up at, E3 covering gaming press conferences and ended up at Comic-Con. I wasn't necessarily ever doing anything prestigious in any of these places. I remember one time I was at Comic-Con and there was a stage presentation for Attack of the Show. And my job was to wrangle enough interesting cosplayers to be around the stage. So that way when they did like, we're cutting to commercial, there'd be a really interesting group of people there.
Okay.
And there was one guy dressed as Venom.
Oh, nice.
It was a really cool Venom costume. But at one point during commercial break, he took the Venom costume off. And I was like, oh, he's sweating in there. Like, it's hot in there. And then he went, and then sneezed into the face mask of this costume right as they said, we're coming back from commercial break. And I remember the look on his face as he looked down at all the snot in this mask and then went, and then pulled it back over his face so he'd be back from commercial in the full Venom mask. So the commitment is hot. Lots of highs and lots of lows at Comic-Con. But yeah, so I got to go to all those kinds of events and see all kinds of cool stuff just by nature of being part of that community, working in that community.
Is there a cosplay that you saw that stood out to you?
Oh, man. I don't know. I mean, there's
maybe
so
the snot-filled one?
So that one, I mean, he looked great. It's just the fact that his face mask was filled with snot. I don't know if there's something I've seen so many great cosplay, like Warhammer, people that are dressed as Space Marines from Warhammer, and I'm like, how did you use the scale? I don't even know where your arms are right now.
Right.
The floor is a great place to see cool costumes, but the best place is generally if you go into like the outer reaches of the convention center, because that's where they have to like assemble themselves, like the big ones.
Yeah.
And so I do know that there's been a couple times where I've been heading to a meeting or somewhere out in the outskirts of San Diego Comic-Con Convention Center, and you'll see someone who's just wearing giant feet, like, or giant legs, like robot legs, and they're strapped into something and they're on stilts, but they're not fully assembled. So you're like, what is that? That's really compelling. So.
Yeah. No, I mean, I give them all the credit in the world. I don't think, personally, for me, I could make something like that.
No. I've thought in the past about buying cool cosplay.
Yeah.
Like I've for the longest time wanted to have a really cool Green Ranger cosplay outfit.
Ooh, okay.
But just never pulled the trigger on actually paying for it and having it shipped from Indonesia or whatever. And I also, in the back of my mind, I was like, that's cheating, right? Like, the really good ones are the ones that people make themselves, so.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, cosplays aside, we got to talk about Funhaus.
Oh, yeah, Funhaus?
But another mispronunciation? Dang it. All this episode.
Again?
Funhaus.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
What has it been like working with them?
I mean, so again, G4 took some time for a while doing some stuff for myself. And then, again, if you just pursue the things that you enjoy, which in my case were video games, nerd culture, stuff like that, I ended up at Machinima, which was a gaming website brand. And formed essentially a joined a gaming channel called Inside Gaming, which was news, but then saw the way the tide was turning and people were doing a lot of more comedy, gameplay, let's plays were new. And so we started building out something there and making more comedy focused. And at first I was just an editor, but then it became easier for me to edit the videos if I was in the room, but then from the room I would be tossing out jokes. And then that became such a thing that it kind of outgrew machinima, and we wanted to keep doing it, but someplace new. So we basically went over and joined Rooster Teeth, but we couldn't bring the Inside Gaming brand with us. That was owned by, so we needed to create something new. And so we created this thing called Funhaus.
Yep.
So it just is a simple name, Funhaus, and thinking, oh, this would be cool. It'd be nice if this is cool and a fun thing we can do for a while. And then I was there for 10 years. I was there for 10 years and it ended last year. I was there from beginning to end, and it ended up being a whole decade of my life. I mean, it was great. It's meeting so many fans, building a community, finding more ways to create entertainment using gaming and even not gaming. Like I created a board game show there. And again, pursuing the things that you love. And finding a way to get other people to enjoy it with you was a big part of that. But yeah, it's just such a long time. Our first hire was my wife, Elise Willems, who is the funniest person I know. But it just worked out that way that she ended up being our first hire. And so she and I worked together for 9 years, which was great. And and so it was a wild experience. I mean, how was Funhaus is a very broad question. There's a lot of ups and downs, but ultimately is an incredible experience, and I'm so grateful to everyone who watched and was a part of that community, and and then also gave me leverage, for lack of a better word, to continue pursuing things that I love, like wrestling. I mean, the only reason that I'm getting to do professional wrestling now is because they were making these documentaries. They wanted to start experimenting with documentaries at Rooster Teeth, and they had done a couple. Some felt like interesting experiments, but others were like, was this just wish fulfillment? Because if it is wish fulfillment, I have a wish.
Right.
It's to train as a professional wrestler. And that's how it started. And then I pitched that, and then finally they were like, fine, we'll do a documentary about you becoming a professional wrestler. And then that's how basically I worked towards my first professional wrestling match, and met everyone at MPW. And so, I'm internally grateful for Funhaus and the opportunities it presented for me. So,
no, that sounds amazing. I think one thing I do have to ask you though is that, did you notice the involvement of your career as you were going through Funhaus, like from the beginning to end? Have you noticed that evolve?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I started, it was like, hey, we're just a bunch of dudes making jokes at video games, right? But then you see the size and scope of that, and then you have to take some sort of responsibility for the community that you're building. And the coolest thing is our community, I think, was really like welcoming, and you have to take some ownership. There's a lot of people who go, I just put it out there and then whatever. You have to take some sort of ownership. And then also when you do it for 10 years, I started essentially editing our videos. And by the end of it, I was the creative director, like looking at the grand picture of everything and working with my wife, who is our co-creative director. Like, what is the shape of this channel? What is the kind of content we're making? What are the business decisions we're making? Because you don't get to just do whatever you want to and hope it makes money. Like, if it costs money, generally you have to figure out how you can turn this into a business. So it started as this thing where, like, we're just friends on a couch cracking wise together, and at the end I have to run a business. And what does that business look like? And then how can I do it so that way the people that work with me are happy?
Yeah.
Was another thing too, is like making sure that, because it's easy to create a business that's a toxic environment for everyone involved.
Right.
I think that's really easy. But it's harder to create a business that you want people to be a part of and they want to be a part of it too.
Yeah.
You can't always make compromising decisions for the sake of the almighty dollar.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I hope everyone knows that, but it is one of these things that sometimes you don't learn until you're in it. You're like, oh, that was so easy before. And then you go, oh, wait, but I want everyone to be happy here.
Yeah.
And what does that look like? It's just important as making money. So
you want to create that positive environment for not only your staff, but yourself.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly one of the biggest things that I learned over the course of my time at Funhaus.
Yeah. And then so transitioning from Funhaus, let's transition to the live shows.
Okay.
Let's in front of an audience, doing what you do in front of, whether it's, 100 people, whatever the case may be. Has that experience being in front of a live crowd helped really become who you are today as a performer?
I don't know if it's helped me become who I am, but it's definitely helped me find what I love more so.
Okay.
The Funhaus and the Inside Gaming, making a video on YouTube that gets millions of views is awesome. It's really cool.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of times all you get to see is a number, especially if you're busy working on whatever the next 5 videos are. You kind of see a number. That number somewhat translates to revenue, and then that revenue even more obscurely translates to how much money you get paid. Right? But there's a lot of prisms that it goes through to reaching you before you get to that point. But ultimately it's a number. And when you work in something like comedy, there's a kinetic nature to hearing people laugh. And so we would do these videos that get millions of views, but then ultimately we would go to a convention, like a Comic-Con or something like that. And we do a room that has 100, 200 people in it. And they would be laughing. And I would say, this feels good.
Right.
This feels really good. Way better than 100 million views is 100 people.
Right.
And so that's not necessarily for everyone, but for me, and maybe this comes from the fact that I enjoyed performing theater and drama and stuff like that. It's like, there's something about like having that relationship with people in the room that's really, really good. And so when Funhaus ended, one of the biggest things that I wanted to pursue was more live events and comedy specifically. It's easy to make jokes that then you're going to take the footage of and then cut down and make sure they're the funniest version of every single joke.
Yeah.
It's harder to step out on stage and be like, all right, for the next 10 minutes, I need to make people laugh. They're going to get all of this unfiltered. So that's a skill set that I wanted to develop. And it was also something that was so rewarding because I started doing a live show called Answer For It.
Yeah.
It's a live trivia comedy show where you don't have to have the right answer. I write trivia questions. I don't even care about trivia that much.
Yeah.
I write trivia questions that you're not supposed to know the answer to, but when you come on the show, you and your teammate can come up with a funny answer. If it's funny enough, you're going to get points for getting it right. So it's very much like improvisational kind of whose line is it anyway type show.
Oh, nice. Okay.
But I did it Dynasty Typewriter. I've done it 4 times a Dynasty Typewriter. And the best part about it is the people in the room laughing.
Right.
And having a good time. And then being able to go, what did you guys think of that? There's like a thing. There's no monitor separating you and your audience. And coming from YouTube for 10 years, that's like really satisfying to me.
Yeah.
So that was something I knew I wanted to pursue.
Yeah. No. I think one thing I have to pull up is a quote from Paul Heyman, if we're going to kind of go wrestling around here. So he had said in a documentary with an ECW panel, and he said that the reason why ECW was so special was because you had that intimate connection with the crowd because it was so small. But it gave you a connection with all these wrestlers that came out, like Tommy Dreamer, obviously, the Sandman, Rob Van Dam, so many of these people, even Paul himself. And it was because you were performing in front of a live audience, doing what you are different than the most, but like it was in person compared to like online, which obviously there wasn't online back then.
Yeah.
But like there was something special about the connection between the audience and the performer.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm not knocking doing an arena, right? Like a concert that is a giant arena or a huge music festival and you can't see beyond the 10th row, it's just crowds of ants cheering for you. I'm sure that feels really good too. I have no doubt that feels really good too.
Right.
But there is something about being like, I can look around this room and see everyone's reaction to what I'm doing. That's really fun because you build that personal connection. And then you go, I remember the face of that person. Like, like, I remember the face they made when I made that joke. They
Yeah.
like really like that joke.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that sticks with you. But so yeah, that's one of the things that when Funhaus ended, I said, rather than immediately jumping on and doing like streaming or something like that, where you're looking at a number, it was like, what are things that I can pursue that I feel like will really develop that audience performer connection that I love so much.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting too, transitioning from live shows, we'll go back to the online world for a little bit because podcasting, that's something that you do as well with Scorpio Sky, with the new podcast coming out. When has that love for creating content like that start for you?
I don't know. I never really thought, coming from the filmmaking, screenwriting side of it, my perception was always be like, write the best version of the thing, get the best people in the room, and then try to make the best version of that thing that you wrote, which is the opposite of kind of off the cuff. But I think just by nature of, again, Funhaus, having done that for so long, understanding like, no, you can find gold. You can find gold just by chatting and having a conversation. Right. And I also think that not everyone wants things to be so scripted some of the time. I think people would like watch this and go like, oh, I appreciate how like candid their conversation was, as opposed to a late night talk show where hey, do tell us the bit about when you got stuck in the elevator. You know, the difference in that I think is noticeable. And so I'm definitely enjoy doing podcasts. I think it's a rapport thing. I don't love just jumping into, like, a lot of people go like, hey, let's do a podcast. And I go, I don't know this person that well.
Right.
And to do a show that you might have 100 episodes of seems really frightening if you don't have a rapport with that person.
Yeah.
So like you said, I just recently started this new podcast, which is a revival of an old podcast called Creating Character with Scorpio Sky, who is a Southern California wrestling veteran. He and I co-hosted together. We also have our producer, Eric Bador, who I worked with a lot at Rooster Teeth. He helped us make our previous show. And we hung out like in chats and on Discord and on meetings and stuff like that for like months before we actually decided to launch the podcast. Because we were like, what is this? Like, are we just doing a podcast to do a podcast, or are we doing it because we actually have things we want to share and things we want to talk about? And so we landed on Creating Character because I do have this background in podcasting and new media, and he has his background in wrestling, and we're both the same age and kind of like crossing, like I'm like, hey, this wrestling thing's really fun, and he's like, hey, this podcasting stuff is really fun.
Right.
So what is our past and our going forward look like, and how do those two things work together to make an interesting discussion week after week? And obviously we're going to have guests on and bring on their opinions and stuff like that too. But it's really fun. On the other side of that too, I also recently started another podcast based on the live show because I was having so much fun bantering with my panelists that then Elise, my wife, she's now producing an Answer For It podcast, which is way more conversational. And it's just myself, my wife, and two of our closest funny friends just doing trivia together. And the stupidest, because we don't know anything. We say it's a podcast for smart people, but we misspell people, right? Like, that's basically what the show is. And so that is really fun too. And it's not us coming up with the best jokes. It's just kind of us figuring out on the fly what the joke is. And I think people enjoy that process too.
Yeah. I mean, especially with having conversations about stuff that you love. Incredible, because I think not only the audience could tell, but like your staff could tell, you're the people around you could tell that what you're talking about and how you describe it, how you express yourself. I think that's something that really helps the product get out there, is that knowing how much you're invested in this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it all goes like, it's like, that's like kind of my story, right? You know, like the theme of the podcast, right? Like that's like all these bits and pieces and things that you were doing along the way. They just like hone in a little bit who you are and what you want to do. And if you follow those threads, you'll get closer and closer to the like ideal version of your life in some ways. And so, yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I've landed now, is all these different pursuits, but they all like in this discussion, we've kind of hammered down how they all kind of like lead to the same point, like
Yeah.
a desire for performance, a desire for entertainment, but then also surrounding yourself with genuine people and pursuing the things that you genuinely love.
Yeah.
So,
No, yeah. I mean, I agree 100%. One thing I think we should transition into now.
yeah.
Let's talk about that documentary.
Okay.
Let's talk about the creation of James Angel.
Okay. Yeah.
The social media superstar that had his first match with then hate Ray Rosas.
Yep.
Can you talk to us about the story behind that, creating that documentary, showing the progress of James Angel heading into his first ever professional wrestling match?
Yeah, it was a mess. So the James Angel moniker, while I have fully embraced it, is a result of having done a WWE 2K gameplay series on the Funhaus channel, where I created professional wrestling versions of everyone, so that way we could wrestle each other. That's what you do. You create a character and you make yourself. And those games have gotten so advanced that you can get the commentators to say anything you want.
Yeah.
They're not going to have my last name, which everyone always mispronounces, right? Obviously. And my character was the last character that I made, and I was running out of time. So I found James, and then for last name, A is at the top. And so I was like, I don't have time to scroll through and looking for the perfect name. James Angel, perfect. Yeah. It has the sound, it has the cadence, right? And so I just grabbed it. But then when the documentary started spinning up, they were like, well, it's going to be based on the gameplay series, so you're going to be that character from the gameplay series.
Wow.
So I was like, well, I'm okay with that. That's fine. I think James Angel sounds better as a wrestler than James Willems. And so I was okay with that. The funny thing, though, was that the documentary was filmed over the course of about 5 days.
Oh, wow.
So I trained for a professional wrestling match in 4 days, and on the 5th day had the match. And that is a testament to MPW, specifically Danny Devine.
Yeah.
Who trained the shit out of me as much as he could in 4 days and got me ready for this match. And then also working with someone like Ray, who the first time meeting, part of the whole motif of the documentary was that I would meet him for the first time on the day leading up to the match.
Right.
I want to say like 45 minutes before. And so him being so professional, someone said to him, hey, you're going to get this guy. He's not going to know what the hell's going on.
Right.
Go out there. Prevent him from looking like an idiot. And if you can, make him look good. And I think he made me look pretty good out there. So, yeah, I mean, it was a great experience. It was such a fulfilling experience for me, but it was brutal. It was brutal. The commute, just if nothing else, to get out to where they were was not in Moore Park, was just not fun. And then I was going every single day for 5 days straight, and I would come home covered in bruises. Training now is fun. I love training for wrestling now. It's fun. But if you haven't done that before, you take a bump and you go, well, I'm going to recover from this for the next 2 weeks, right? Your body just isn't used to it. So I just remember just acquiring new bruises every single day. I would just come home, and then my wife would be like, well, I guess I'll get the ice and we'll see how much we can recover by the time you have to go back tomorrow. So it was a brutal process, but it was a lot of fun. And the whole time I was thinking, like, I asked for this, I wanted this, and when it's done, I'm going to be so glad that I have this.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, once the documentary was over, I kept going to training for a little while. But then life just got in the way and things got tough. And then when Funhaus ended, I said, I ain't got no excuse. So I texted Danny. I said, what's it like over there now? And he's like, well, we're in Chatsworth. And if you want to come, let me know, and we'll pick a good day, and then we can train. And so then I started training again last year, and it's been great. It's been awesome. I love working with them.
Yeah. No, I mean, I definitely could tell with, the popularity of the character, the popularity of, the stories that you've created with Cody Prince and all that. It's been really cool.
I'm curious your perception. Can I throw it back at you for a second?
Sure, okay.
Because my perception is, and I've been fully aware of it, is like, I'm just someone who just wanted to do it. And I leveraged my clout, my minor but still somewhat significant clout to say, hey, put me in here and let me do this. How do you feel like James Angel has been perceived at MPW?
So I personally felt like James Angel has been the guy who has a lot of followers, has a lot of clout, as you said. I don't say that. I'm 26 and I don't say that. But a lot of clout by its side, and has gone through MPW before and is returning to try to make a good first impression the second time, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Like trying to make a statement in this modern era where wrestling is the hottest thing right now. You know what I mean? So that's my perception of it.
Yeah.
I love everything about it, especially, like I said, from a bias perspective, the whole, he's saying 6'1".
Oh yeah.
He's weighing 230 pounds from Hollywood, Cal, and then he's like, okay, that's true. Like that whole thing is great.
Yeah.
So that's the perception I'm getting.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to embrace wholly the fact that I am getting. If I was just a regular kid coming in off the street and saying, hey, I want to be a pro wrestler, I would be put into a very different machine than I got put into.
Right.
Having a history, having, a following of some sort, and having a history with MPW and Danny. So I acknowledge that, which is part of the reason I think people have to boo me.
Yeah.
And they deserve to boo me, because even if it is all booked and set up, I am still skipping a fair amount of the line for many other people. There's tons of people that I train with and I'm like, well, you guys are here longer though. But I still have an immense amount of respect for everyone there and for the art form, and I like to think that I bust my ass, but I'm just curious what you thought.
No worries. Well, James, I appreciate you coming on, but the last question I have for you, and I always ask this after every podcast, is, are you proud of the story you created thus far? It used to be, are you proud of your story? Because then that's more like a yes or no kind of question. But I mean, I ask that because it's like, after everything that you've done with Funhaus, after everything you've done with the acting, the live performances, and even wrestling, are you proud of the story that you've created thus far for yourself, for James Willems?
Yeah, I am. I genuinely am. I have loved my life. That is not an understatement at all. I'm grateful for the opportunities that I've given. There's obviously things that I would have changed, and there's still things that I aspire to do. My life isn't over, knock on wood, but I am immensely grateful, and that extends to my personal life too. Like I am married to an incredible person who makes me better every single day, and I have great friends that come out and support me when I tell them I'm going to have a wrestling match, and they've never gone to a wrestling match ever before in their life, and they're like, "We'll go. We'd love to support you walking out in very tiny tights and beating up whoever, So we'll happily boo you." And so I think that is something that I'm intensely grateful for, and I just hope that, and also the people who've followed me, like the people, because I have no leverage and no clout if it weren't for people being like, hey, really appreciated what you did. This video you made when I was 15 is like one of the things that transformed me, or whatever, for the worse or for the better. I don't know. But I really appreciate it, and you helped me get out of a funk or any of this. Like, so I'm truly grateful for all of that stuff, and I hope that I can, keep building on the life that I've made for myself thus far.
So if anybody's not following you thus far, where can they find you on Instagram, YouTube, whatever the case may be?
For sure. I always say the easiest way to find me is to search James Willems, because there aren't many of us. There's like a farmer in Northern California who sells berries, and then there's a cardiologist somewhere else. Those two, they aren't me. The other one probably is.
Right.
So I would say just search, Instagram or Blue Sky. And then also, if you want to check out the podcast I do with Scorpio Sky, just search Creating Character Podcast. We are on Instagram or on YouTube. And then the live show that I do, if you prefer more of the comedy side, Answer For It is a podcast. It is on YouTube. It's on Spotify, or basically anywhere you get your podcast. So look it up.
Well, angel emojis in the chat.
Yeah, throw some wings up. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you for having me.
That's where we cut. Because I'm not used to doing the whole, and now subscribe. Nope.
Oh, no, yeah.
All right, can we get a picture together?
Yeah.